Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Always a lot to talk about with you and with our panel tonight. We will get into the Penguins, who've opened training camp trying to go for a three-peat. Also talk about the pit disaster yesterday against Oklahoma State and where exactly is this program in year number 3. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Steelers, who are now 2-0 in this season, winning handily today 26-9 against the Vikings. And here is your panel, left to right on your television screen. Paul Zeise of the Post-Gazette and 93.7 The Fan. In the middle, it's Will Graves from the Associated Press. And to the right, Ron Cook from the Cook and Pony Show and, of course, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So we'll get right into it. Paul Zeise, I'm going to ask you about the Steelers from this point of view. They won. They're 2-0. They did everything they had to win. I want to start, though, with their offense, because it still, to me, seems like it's not exactly clicking, and their offensive line is not as good as I thought it would be. Is this just a matter of time, or do you have concerns?
I would say I have a little bit of concern about Alejandro Villanueva. I don't think he was very good at all today. He got beat a lot. But for the most part, the offensive line, I think, is going to be okay. Le'Veon Bell is probably another week or two away from really having his timing and everything down. And even, though he had a touchdown today, Martavis Bryant and Ben Roethlisberger are probably another game or two from really getting on the same page. So I don't worry at all about their offense. I think in about 3 or 4 weeks, when that thing starts rolling, they're going to be a real problem for teams.
Well, I think Villanueva was sick late in the week and got sicker today. The heat got to him. He was dehydrated. He did not play well against that defensive end. There's no question. I thought Brian and Ben were much better today. 91 yards on the 3 catches, and then he drew the 49-yard penalty. Bryant did. If the guy hadn't tackled him, that would have gone for a touchdown. I think Bell was better. I'm with you, Paul. I think this offense is going to be just fine as they progress down the road. Now, it's 2 touchdowns again for the second week in a row, but I think Roethlisberger said afterwards that defense today was one of the best he's played in a long time.
Well, I would tend to agree that, Minnesota's defense was and is one of the best in the league, but there is a little bit of concern. 3 of 13 on third down is not where they want to be. Even Le'Veon Bell talked about it after the game, saying, look, we've got to be better. Even the third downs they converted, Ben had to make a, quote, crazy play to get those in, which means you've got to win more on first and second down. There were more penalties today, 10 for 72 yards, not as debilitating as last week, but they've got to cut down on those. I think they will get better. But part of today was, the Vikings are pretty good, and I still think the offense is just not that sharp yet.
We always talk about play calling, and, in shows like this, even though they won, and I thought overall they had some really good play calling. It's funny because last week, Ron, we were sitting here talking about how the Steelers refused to go down the field, and this week it seemed like all they did was go down the field. What's your take on that?
Well, Todd Haley will tell you, Roethlisberger will tell you, they always try to take what the defense gives them. They felt like they were playing their safeties up a little bit, that they could throw it over their head, and it worked. Antonio had the one long catch. Martavis had the, 51-yarder in addition to the 49-yard penalty. So I guess they took what they had out there for them. The third downs are a concern. But I thought Le'Veon looked better today. Still not even close to what he was last year. But the good news is they're 2-0, going to Chicago to play a real bad team. Next week, theoretically, you should be 3-0, although you never know in the NFL.
Yeah, all the deep shots. The only problem I had with them, there was times where guys were really wide open underneath, right, and they almost forced it down the field. Last week, they didn't throw it down the field at all. But again, I think that comes with what we were talking about in the first part of this discussion, and that is it's going to take a couple of weeks for everything to get in sync, and that includes play calling, and that includes, seeing what the defense is doing and being able to adjust to it. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but I thought they went down the field way too often and left some yards and points on the field as a result.
The only sequence that I thought was a little weird was the end of the first half, where they get to midfield and Antonio toe taps and gets them to the 46, and they went deep on consecutive plays, both times to guys that had safety help over the top. Both incompletions, and you end up not getting any points there at the end. To me, that was a problem. That's the only real – look, we're sitting here, if they're throwing 5-yard crossing routes to Juju Schuster-Smith, we're sitting here complaining, why are they not throwing the ball right when you got a guy that runs 6'5" and runs a 4.240 and you have Antonio Brown? So, it's pick your poison a little bit. Todd Haley's not going to please anybody.
The bottom line is they're 2-0. That's all you can be at this point. You think Cincinnati wishes they were 2-0 right now? It's all. I agree with Ben when he says there's no style points. This isn't the BCS. They got to keep getting better. no question. But,
the hype was. But the hype
this was more impressive than last week's one.
It was, but I mean, the hype coming in was this is a team that's going to be one of the best offenses of the NFL. They have the talent and the pieces to obviously make that happen, but they're sort of a victim of their own hype at this point. I mean, we sort of expect them now to go out and put up, because at times they can put up 42, 49 points, throw for 6 touchdowns because they have in the past. And it's not like they're playing, the 72 Dolphins out there every week. So, I mean, I think there is a little bit of concern. 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks is not going to get it done, because we're going to talk about Pitt later scoring 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks, and that obviously didn't get it done. Right. So I think that, look, there's certainly room for growth here, and I do think they will get better, but maybe this is a good thing. I mean, maybe when I was a kid, I would get good grades the first quarter, and the second quarter I get bored and I get grounded because my grades were terrible. I should have gotten the bad grades first and the good grades later, and I think the Steelers are sort of doing that. Defensively,
interesting, because I think this defense is going to be real good. I've thought so throughout the preseason. However, you also have to consider what they've played so far, and that would be Deshaun Kaiser and today Case Keenum. Not exactly, Tom Brady, so you have to take that into account. But overall, Ron, I'll get your assessment of the defense, and the biggest noticeable absence was James Harrison. Not one snap today, even though there was a need for him after the injury to J.J. Watt.
Yeah, I was surprised that when Watt went down in the second quarter, they went right to Chickalo, who plays the other side normally, instead of Harrison, who backs up Watt. I was surprised by that. I don't know what that means. I guess they think he can't play anymore. I mean, I don't know. You're not saving him now. When you need him, you got to play him, and I felt like they needed him today, even though Chickalo has done some really good things. I get what you're saying, Bob, about the quarterbacks, but I thought the pass rush the last couple games has been pretty good. 7 sacks last week. They made Keenum hustle today. Cam Hayward was everywhere. They got some pressure on him today. I thought getting Dupree back today was big. So, I mean, again, it's the same as the offense. It's a work in progress, but you don't want to be the best you can be in the second game. You're going to get better and better, you think.
I think the key takeaway about the defense is that front seven really dominated the first 2 games. And if you dominate with your front seven, almost doesn't even matter who your secondary is and what they are. I understand that they weren't playing great quarterbacks. Last week they were playing a rookie. Today they were playing a backup. Next week they'll probably play one that's even worse than the first 2 that they played. But the reality is, they were able to get to him. They were able to put pressure on him. They were able to make him uncomfortable. And you know what? Outside of Tom Brady, if you can do that and even Tom Brady, if you can do that on a weekly basis, it almost doesn't matter who the quarterback is.
Well, I mean, look, as far as Harrison goes, there are concerns on the team that he just can't run anymore, that he can't keep up with the guys he needs to keep up with. And they've been trying for, 4 or 5 years to replace him, and now that they finally appear to, I think that's probably a good thing, because let's be honest, he should not have had 5.5 sacks last year, but they couldn't find anybody else that was as effective as he is. Now they have guys that are more effective. That's probably a good thing for the team, even if it's not for James.
All right, next week it's the Steelers and the Bears. You'll see it on KDKA-TV, and they have an opportunity to go 3-0 before a big game against Baltimore. They don't want to look ahead to Baltimore. That has hurt them before. We'll see what happens. Meantime, when we come back, we'll take a break, and we'll talk about Pitt and what happened yesterday to Oklahoma State. So many aspects of that game we'll be debating. That's all coming up next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.